Welcome back to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Sayan. I think deep down, many of us have started to question it. If the cost of building something meaningful is always our mental, emotional, or even physical health, you can scale impact without sacrificing your energy, values. From launching one of Canada's most recognized purpose led copy brands to developing powerful frameworks at the intersection of AI, human performance, and sustainability. Alisha's journey shows us that burnout doesn't have to be at the cost of, well, you guessed that right, ambition. So let's slow down for a moment and let's rethink what it actually means to build something big. So welcome to the show, Alisha. It's an absolute honor to have you here with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing, amazing. And uh, Alisha, I just keep thinking about how many founders I know, um, including me at certain points, who learned the hard way that pushing past your limit isn't actually strength, it's just a survival mode with a nicer outfit. Like I've seen friends hit huge milestones, and I think the scary part is everyone around them keeps applauding them for it. So before we get into the frameworks, tools, or even the mindset, I just want to start with the belief underneath all of this. Um, a, a lot of founders still believe that, right? But my question to you is, when did you realize that burnout wasn't just unhealthy; it's actually holding you back?
I think I realized it after my third time burning out, being in that cycle of burnout and then getting healthy again through recovery and then ending back into burnout. And I just kind of stopped and was like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. If this is what business is, I don't know if I want it. So I had to have a really honest conversation with myself. And that's when I started to ask better questions from the mentors around me. And then specifically working with a new business coach to teach me a better way with better systems to buy back my time.
Hmm. Uh, that's like listening to you. I'm struck by I think how many founders only realize that once the damage is done, right? The same with you in your case, and it makes me wonder if burnout has become uh normalized to the point where people don't even actually notice it. And this actually makes me think about the bigger narrative around work. And one thing that I can remember is in Japan, which is known for its extreme workouts, right? And it's definitely one of the most developed countries out there. Is now testing a 4-day work week because they have realized that the old mindset isn't just sustainable. And that actually makes me think about the bigger narrative around work. Like, what's your take on this?
I think it's not about balance, but it's about harmony. And so there are definitely seasons where you have to work harder, you have to push harder. As you know, success doesn't come easy. It comes through putting in the work, putting in the reps, and getting better at multiple skills at the same time. I think the difference is what your focus is and if you have the right systems in place. 40 hours is a tough one. I think when you're first starting, it's hard to build something big at 40 hours. But again, I think it's less about the actual time and more about building in a way where you get your time back.
Hmm. Indeed. And there is an interesting perspective. What do you so I'll give you an example, right? You come back home from your work and it's past your work time, and then your manager calls you and makes a request, right? Or something that has got into the way and he has escalated a few things. And how would you respond to that? Would you respond to it in a negative way that don't disturb me, my work plan is already over. So my question to you is, where's the line? Right? How does a founder or a person distinguish between healthy intensity and self-respected overextension?
That is an awesome question. I think you really need to look at the specific circumstance and be honest with yourself of how important it is. I think especially for founders like myself, being on the other side of it, who's making that calls, asking someone else in their free time to keep working, a lot of times we blow things out of proportion. So we feel like
Right.
they're really important and they're, emergent. We need to deal with them right away when really they can wait till tomorrow. And so, let's say you only have 3 cards to play and you can only ask someone to do that, 3 times a week or 3 times a month, depending on the type of industry and the type of job that they have. Do you wanna play all those cards, in the first week of the month, or do you wanna spread them out? Because you also don't wanna burn out your staff.
Right.
If your staff aren't healthy, your company's not gonna be healthy either.
Right. Right. And unfortunately enough, I think, uh, well, this is now we're having this conversation because obviously we want everyone to be on the same page. And that's interesting because I think so many listeners might be in that messy middle where they're working hard, but I'm sure they're crossing into that burnout territory. But your distinction, the way you paint that adds a lot of clarity. And I think a lot of people are nodding to this right now because they're in that in between zone of working hard, trying to grow, but not totally sure if they're taking care of themselves. So I want to go into a deeper layer, Isha. You develop the what you call the five tanks framework, which deals with the emotional, mental, physical, relation, and spiritual stuff. Critics might say that this is too abstract for founders who are drowning into operational fires. So my question to you is essentially why should someone um you know an overwhelmed founder prioritize these things when revenue hiring or even survival seem more urgent?
I would say this 5 tank framework is the one thing that can keep a founder on track and in harmony versus burning out. And the reason is every single human, doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak, your cultural upbringing, if you were born in the 1800s or in, 2020. Everyone has these 5 tanks: emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, relational. And how we fill them up might be different, right? If someone's an extrovert versus an introvert, how they fill up that relational tank might be different. An introvert might need some time alone to recharge, refresh, whereas the extrovert might need to get around their friends and their family, go out to a restaurant,
Oh,
right? So it does look different, but it's very human to have all 5 of these tanks.
wow. Okay. And if someone's tank, let's say, are nearly empty, what's the first smallest action that they can take to start refilling them without guilt?
So what I would say is let's start what it looks like when it's full so that you can recognize what it looks like when they're empty. So when your tanks are full, you're usually in the pocket, you're doing well, you're joy filled, you feel like you're just crushing work and your relationships are good. When your tanks are empty, you're usually, picking fights with your friends and family, you're being short with your coworkers, you're feeling drained, anxiety starts to,
Mm.
the climb, and you start feeling like you're spiraling and losing kind of control, right? So if you're
Yeah.
in that place, anyone listening right now that's in that place feeling like their tanks are low and they are feeling depleted and they wake up, they're anxious, they go to bed, they're anxious. I would start as simple as this. Draw 5 circles on a piece of paper. Write like each one out: spiritual, mental, physical, relational, spiritual. And just treat it like a gas tank. And 1 to 10, give yourself a score on how full your tanks are. And just by looking at that visually, if you see like, okay, my tanks are like 1, 3, 5, you probably need to stop and figure out what you specifically need to do to fill them up. I do this every single morning. I journal this out.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I really love how simple you made that. It really takes pressure of. And I think a huge part of that is self retrospection, like you said. And founders are so used to thinking that if I'm not making a huge change, it doesn't count. When in reality, I think it's those tiny shifts that start to invert everything, like you mentioned. I just want to connect to something you talk about a lot, which is buying back time, especially with tools like AI that we have in today's modern age. So you help founders use AI and systems to say buy back time, but here's a valid counterpoint that I want to put forth is that some people worry that AI makes leaders more disconnected, less hands-on, even less creative to that extent. How do you address that fear that automation could actually um, could make work feel less human?
I think like any tool, it comes down to how you use it. So if we use AI in a way that just replaces our thinking completely, that's probably not good. We're going to lose our edge. We're going to lose our strategic thinking. We're not going to operate in our genius. But if you leverage AI in a way that it takes away the mundane, I always say, like your genius probably isn't sorting your emails or responding, writing drafts or doing the mundane, repeatable tasks. Your genius is in the creative and being visionary and being strategic. So, what I help founders figure out is what buckets can they leverage AI in so that they eliminate the things that drain their energy and can focus on the tasks that they really enjoy and give them life.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And could you share a concrete example where someone used AI to uh, say not do more, but create more space for a better decision making or uh, more meaningful work?
Yes, I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes, especially founders and people that are really trying to make something happen, they're very passionate. And sometimes
Right.
when you're very passionate, you can come across intense or, say something that might offend someone. AI is awesome for that. You can create a project in ChatGPT or Claude, train it to sound like you, give it a master prompt, and have it reiterate back to you how you can rephrase something or communicate something in a better way to not damage relationships or what I call emotional shrapnel.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, indeed. I think prompt engineering is something definitely that's a must-have skill these days. And the way you frame that really shifts something for me. Most people only think of AI as the things that gets you go more faster, um, do more, squeeze more into the day basically. And hearing you position it as a well-being tool, that's like something that founders usually don't get exposed to. And lastly, but not the least, Alisha, your message is clear that you don't have to burn out to build something big. But let me play the devil's advocate, right? Do you think this philosophy only works for founders with resources, like those who already have support funding or privileged access? Or so my question to you is, what about the founder who is truly building from a scarcity?
I would say that was me. So when I started, all I had was an old car to my name, and I didn't have any support. I didn't have any financial backing. I started from zero. So I don't think resources necessarily matter. They help for sure, but sometimes they also set you back because when you're starting, when you don't have a lot, you're willing to think outside the box and be more creative. So my
Right.
suggestion would be, and I learned this the hard way from, again, from burning out myself, instead of leaning into working harder and just doing whatever it takes to succeed and that scarcity mindset, let's flip it and focus on leveraging being creative, thinking outside the box, and leveraging things that are gonna help us grow faster and smarter.
Hmm. And Aisha, one might also put this perspective that um, if having an iPhone or tablet, whatever, a laptop, and a Wi-Fi is everything you need. That's like everything you need in today's world. Yeah, how true do you think that is?
Oh, I agree 100%. Like, I've been working internationally my whole life. Um, had the privilege of traveling with my family when I was young, and then doing development work overseas, and then starting an international coffee company. And some of the smartest, most creative, inventive people I have met in the middle of the jungle or a mountain village, and all they had was, a phone and Wi-Fi, or a phone and that's it. They don't even have a laptop, but they're able to like, nowadays, we can do anything with the power of
Right,
stone.
right,
Yeah.
right. Absolutely. That's kind of crazy how far we have gotten ourselves. Um, Aisha, thank you for how honestly you have been walking us through this. And my biggest takeaway from this is that I think ambition doesn't have to, or shouldn't actually cost us our well-being. There is a way. There should be a way to build without breaking ourselves in the process. That's what we talked about in today's conversation. So, um, if someone is in that place, what would you tell them in the most honest and non-motivational way?
If they're wanting to find a better way to do things,
Yeah.
I would say start by getting very clear on what your end goal is. I think that's one of the challenges in business and in life. We dream big, we say we wanna be successful, but what does that really look like? What kind of house do you wanna live in? What kind of resources do you wanna have? What's the number you want in your bank account? Get very clear and then work backwards, because a lot of times we're just on this treadmill running towards success, but we really don't even know what we're trying to do big picture. And so it causes a lot of
Right.
confusion and chaos.
Right. And at that success, like you said, it's an arbitrary thing. Something to me, something to you, something to someone else. So I agree 100%. Well, thank you for that. Thank you so much for that clarity, Alisha. I really love how you framed that. And before we just wrap this off, I would just want to ask this on behalf of everyone who's listening to this and wants to connect with you and know more about your work. Where can they find you?
Well, I have a gift for you and your listeners today. If anyone listening wants my 5 framework exercise book, I will send it to them for free. So just DM me saying 5 tanks framework and mention this podcast, and I will send it for free. And you can find me at Alisha Esmail on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Amazing. You heard it, Alisha, right, guys? I'll have the details in the show notes for you, so you can check them out anytime. And as we wrap up today's conversation, success isn't about doing more, it's about knowing what matters to you the most. In a world that rewards speed, noise, and constant output, it's easy to forget that our energy, our clarity, and our well being are some of the most important, if not the most important. They're foundational. And if those fall apart, everything we are trying to build becomes very fragile. Alisha, thank you so much for bringing that honesty. And to everyone listening, if you're building something meaningful, I hope today's conversation helps you to take the most important asset, is yourself. This is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I am Sayan. And take care, build intentionally, and I'll see you in the next one.